my dear students. Welcome to Vignyan's Foundation for Science, Technology and Research, deemed to be University. I, Dr. M.B.K. Srivani, Associate Professor from the Department of Sciences and Humanities, present here to discuss Environmental Impact Assessment. What do you understand by this Environmental Impact Assessment? This is mandatory for all the large scale projects. While we are doing project, especially large scale projects like construction of factory, industry, construction of dam, bridge, this environmental impact assessment is mandatory. It means we are giving assurance that this development project will not create any harm to the nature on a long term or short term basis. That's why the Ministry of Environment and Forestry made mandatory for all the large scale projects. This environmental impact assessment is required. Okay, let us discuss about this environmental impact assessment. Okay, now coming to the definition of environmental impact assessment. What we are doing here, we are assessing the overall impacts of the proposed project. Right? Now see the definition. What is this environmental impact assessment? It is an exercise that has to be carried out for every large scale project, or we can discuss like this. It is an exercise to be carried out before an project or major activity is undertaken to ensure that it will not create or cause any harm in the environment on a short term or long term basis. I told you in the introduction, it is an exercise that has to be carried out for every large scale project, because we are giving assurance that this development project will never create harm to the nature on a short term or long term basis. That is the definition of EIA. Let us see the main aim of environmental impact assessment. The main aim of environmental impact assessment is to assess the overall impacts of the proposed project. That is the main aim. What is the objective of this environmental impact assessment? Its main objective is to ensure that the development is sustained with minimum environmental degradation. That means we are giving assurance whatever project we are doing that leads to sustainable development. Maximum environmental degradation can be reduced or controlled. Like that we are giving assurance. That's why to ensure development is sustained with minimum environmental degradation. Definitely, if you do the projects, pollution is there, environmental problems are there, but we take measures to control the problem up to maximum extent. What are the salient features of environmental impact assessment? This EIA procedure identifies the positive and the negative impacts to the environment resulting from a proposed project. Environmental impact assessment provides a plan. We will provide one plan. After putting it into action, that means after implementation, it will reduce the negative effects of the project, resulting minimum environmental degradation. This environmental impact assessment helps to identify the parameters of uncertainty. That means the factors causing effect or the factors causing harm can be identified and measures the related impacts. So these are the salient features of environmental impact assessment. I already discussed this in introduction. MOEF means Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Government of India has been assigned the responsibility of carrying out environmental impact assessment of developmental projects in various sectors. I repeat, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Government of India has been assigned the responsibility of carrying out environmental impact assessment of developmental projects in various sectors like multi-purpose river projects, irrigation projects, industries, mining activities, etc. All of you see here, coming to the procedure, there is one flow chart here. I'll explain the flow chart, then you can clearly understand the procedure of environmental impact assessment. All of you see here, entire EIA procedure is divided into two sub-reports. Please, if you learn this, then you can easily draw flow chart, or otherwise I will explain in flow chart. Okay, so now you can see what are the two sub-reports. All of you see here, first one is initial environmental examination. This is the first one. Next one, full scale environmental impact assessment. Procedure can be done in two sub-reports, that is IEE and full scale environmental impact assessment, FEIA. Okay, let me tell you what is initial environmental examination. First we will identify the project. Project proposal is the first step. This is the procedure, how we are doing. Okay, so here initial environmental examination means reviewing the environmental integrity of projects to help to determine whether or not EIA level studies can be undertaken or not. Suppose we are doing one project. In that project, we will go for screening, initial environmental examination. In that, the results of this initial environmental examination will tell whether to do or to carry out further processes or not, further steps or not. Okay, that can be clearly done in the initial environmental examination. That's why initial environmental examination means reviewing the environmental integrity of projects to help to determine whether or not EIA level studies can be undertaken. If the results indicate EIA level studies should be done, then we will carry out the further procedure. Otherwise, we will adopt some control measures to eradicate the problems caused by the project. Okay, so that is about initial environmental examination. Initial environmental examination used to project screening to determine which projects requires FEIA. See, FEIA means there are some steps in FEIA. So that means if the results indicate FEIA is required, then we further carry out this process. If the results indicate FEIA is not required, then simply we will carry out the control measures to eradicate the problem. Please remember. Understood? See, that's why IEE, initial environmental examination, identifies that full scale EIA is not required. That means no EIA. I will ask you in the flow chart. Then what happens? Other environmental measures or monitoring programs can be adopted to control the impact. All of you see this flow chart. I'll continue the procedure. By seeing the flow chart, you can explain all the steps in environmental impact assessment. Understood? So let me tell you, all of you see clearly, the first one here it is proposal identification. From first I am telling. Okay. So first, what is the first step here? We will go for screening of the project. We will do initial environmental examination. In initial environmental examination, suppose if EIA is not required, what I told you, if EIA is not required, simply monitoring programs are adopted, I told you. Okay, leave it. Suppose if EIA is required, then the first step, scope, identifying what is important, what is not important, define the proposed action, everything we will study, that is scope. Okay, next, analysis of impacts. The next step is impact analysis. After analyzing the impacts, we will produce mitigation and impact management, means control measures and impact management. Okay, after that we will prepare one report. So here what we are doing, we will study about the project. Okay, we will describe that area, we will check the environment, how the environment is affected or modified, that all we will just write a report. Based on that all we will write a report. Okay, in the meanwhile we will also use some methods are also used to identify the impacts. Alternatives are provided, we will evaluate alternatives, everything. This is all the process which we will do. Okay, after doing that all, we will prepare one document, that is EIA report. Okay, so this report is reviewed. This report is reviewed, and after reviewing this report, decision making. The committee members will verify this report and they will take decision to accept this proposal or reject this proposal. Understood? If they accept this proposal, for example, in decision making, if the report what we submitted, it is verified, scrutinized, and if it is accepted, that means if it is approved, then implementation and post EIA monitoring. If it is not accepted or not approved, then we will redesign the project and finally resubmission takes place. Understood? Here from starting, that means from scope to review, public involvement is there. See, without public involvement the problems cannot be solved, or we will also take some suggestions and we involve the public. From scoping, the first step, scope to review, the public involvement is there. Okay, the public involvement occurs at all these steps. What are there? Scope, impact analysis, mitigation and impact management, EIA report, review. Okay, so it may also occur at any stage. At any stage we may involve the public. See, implementation and post EIA monitoring. Information from this process contributes to effective EIA in the future. Okay, so understood now? EIA procedure, I told you, initial environmental examination, full scale environmental impact assessment, later this flow chart and the steps in full scale environmental impact assessment. You learn this flow chart, it's enough, you can write. Okay? Now what is a statement? We will prepare one document covering all the impacts, okay, giving solutions. That written document is called statement. Let me repeat. Environmental impact statement means, in order to ascertain, that means find out the impacts of various development projects both on the society as well as on the land, water, air, plants and animals. The development projects are required to prepare an environmental impact statement. It is the written document prepared by the project authorities. It covers the following. The first one, effect on land, including land degradation and land subsidence. That statement or the document will cover all these consequences. Next one, deforestation. Next, air and water pollution, loss of biodiversity or flora and fauna, socio-economic impacts including human displacements, cultural loss and health impacts. See, the project authorities are requested to provide relevant information as indicated in the guidelines. After preparing this environmental impact statement, They may ask you in exam, DEIS means Draft Environmental Impact Statement. Draft Environmental Impact Statement. This Draft Environmental Impact Statement, they make some amendments. After making amendments, we call it as FEIS. That means Final Environmental Impact Statement. The EIS in the form of draft is called Draft Environmental Impact Statement. After making modification or amendments, we call it as Final Environmental Impact Statement. Right? Now, whatever statement we made, that is scrutinized by the technical staff of the Ministry of India. Understood? Whatever we have given that statement, that is verified or scrutinized by technical staff of the ministry and then forwarded to the advisory committee. Remember, like this, it is difficult to understand. This EIA report is scrutinized. Remember, like that. Scrutinized by the technical staff of central government. Okay. After scrutinization, it is hand over to advisory committee. This advisory committee will do spot assessment. It will further verify. After verification, if it is satisfied, it will hand over this to appraisal committee. Understood? Finally. So, these are the steps. EIA scrutinized or verified by technical staff and hand over to advisory committee. This advisory committee finally give to appraisal committee. After that, finally what happens? Based on the examination of appraisal committee, finally appraisal committee will decide, make their recommendations for approval or rejection of the particular project. If they approve the project, implementation. Okay. So, just now I have shown in the flow chart. If they are not approved, we have to redesign and resubmit again. Okay. This is about environmental impact assessment and environmental impact statement. Okay. So, in this video, I told environmental impact assessment, definition, aim, objectives, procedure of EIA, steps or stages in full-scale environmental impact assessment. I explained the flow chart. I also explained environmental impact statement. After this statement, how this statement is verified by technical staff and it is handed over to advisory committee. Finally, decide to accept or reject the proposal. These are some of the reference which I took from the website. Thank you.